Hey guys, this is the second challenge. This is going to be asked of by Paul. Sandy asks Paul for advice, and he says don't fold under the pressure. The second challenge is the technical challenge. This week's one is the 12 fortune cookies. 6 of them must be almond cookies, and the other 6 must be orange patterned cookies. Each cookie must contain a fortune inside. They have 2 hours for the challenge. The bakers have been given the same set of instructions and the same amount of ingredients. Paul explains that when you think of fortune cookies, it may seem easy, but actually on paper, this is a very difficult technical challenge. This is all about timing. You cannot put all of them in the oven, maybe 2 or 3 at a time possibly, but no more than that. And they must just brown on the outside. And when they come out of the oven, they only have a very short time to create the fortune cookie before they set. Prue explains, so it's all about their speed and dexterity, but the most important thing is the snap. The presenters go over to talk to Jan. As part of the instructions, they must create their own fortune. Jan has used look after your feet and the rest will follow. The first step is requiring them to mix the egg whites, oil and water. Once they have their batter, they must then separate them. The batter must be made into 2 circles of almond batter. James explains that he is going to put the batter in for 3 minutes in the oven. Alternatively, Jan decides that 5 minutes sounds like a better idea to bake the cookies, while Stephen has resorted to the crouch on the floor and keep looking approach. Once baked, they decide to fold them along the seal and shape using the rim of glass. James is the first to discover this technique, how to form the cookie. Once he has folded them, he then decides to place the finished ones in a baking tray so that they don't stretch out and lose their shape. Meanwhile, Stacey and Flo are seen to be struggling. The next step is to chop some almonds and melt some white chocolate together. They then move on to the orange cookies. They must add orange essence and orange colouring. Then they must pipe the white batter that they created using the almond version around the edge of the cookie and create a pattern from the dots using a cocktail stick to join them. Once the almond cookies are cooled, they are then the almonds are dropped onto the cookies on both sides and then coated in almonds. Now it's time for their judgment. The first person they go to is Julia's. Paul says they have the shape to them. Prue says they are actually quite even and cracked beautifully. They can taste both the almond and the orange flavours. They move on to Stephen's. Paul says they are pretty even. There is a shape, however they are a bit rubbery, no crack. This means they are just slightly underdone. They move on to Kate's fortune cookies. Paul says there is not enough colouring in there at all. It cracks well. Prue says you could break your teeth on them. They are a bit too thick and dense. As you can see, if the 2 of them are side to side, there is not much difference in the colour. The only difference, and the only way you actually tell the difference, is from the almond on the ones on the right. They then move on to Chris. Prue says, I don't think they ever got to the oven, did they? Both judges spit out the raw batter, and Prue says it's not much fun. They then look at Tom's. They say they all look the same. Orange needs to be a stronger colour. Prue says that really cracked nicely. Paul says the nice orange flavour just needed more colour in there. They move on to Stacey. Paul says they are quite raw The almond ones have lost their shape, and you can unfold them. They don't snap, they're not baked enough. They move on to James, and Prue says, these look pretty good. Paul says the orange ones have a stronger colour to them, which he likes. He says there's a nice break, a nice flavour. Prue says that's a good one. They move on to Sophie. Prue says, now these look good. They look very beautiful. That is a very good little heart shape for the orange ones. The crack, however, is a little bit rubbery. They move on to Liam's fortune cookies. Prue sighs and says, now, this isn't a very happy picture. I don't think they were quite ready. Paul says they haven't managed to seal it up before they bent it. Prue says, oh, beautiful crack, but they aren't the right shape, are they? They move on to Flo's fortune cookies. Paul says, right, moving on to whatever these are. The fortune inside says, I have made a right mess of this. Prue says, I think he just invented that. They're raw, though. Paul says he is getting the almond flavour in there. The last person they go over to is Jan. Paul says the orange ones look quite pretty and has a bit of a cylindrical shape to it before it's been bent. They've broken very well. The almond is coming through nicely and it is very crispy. So here are the results. In 11th place is Chris. 10th is Flo. Prue says, oh, Flo, they are the wrong shape, aren't they? 9th is Stacey. Paul says, they are raw. 8th is Kate. 7th is Liam. 6th is Stephen. 5th is Tom. 4th is Julia. 3rd is James. Paul says, nice shape, nice pattern, nice snap. 2nd place is Sophie. Prue says they look absolutely beautiful. And in 1st place is Jan. Paul says, nice colour, nice shape. You ticked all the boxes. So, what do you guys think of this result? Did you think it was necessarily fair that this type of challenge was very focused towards Yan, considering that she is Chinese born? I'm sure she probably witnessed her mother doing many of these in the kitchen when she was living there. Also, in that respect, the fact two or three of the fortune cookies were raw means that they had no choice but to place them as low as they were. This, again, you should notice, is the 2nd week that Stephen has received a 6th. This seems quite unusual, considering in the last Bake Off episode for Cake Week, he came 6th in this position, and yet he won Star Baker. It's very interesting in that when it was last week, there were 12 bakers, so he came exactly halfway. And in this week, since there are 11 bakers, he is now under the halfway mark, which goes to show that you don't necessarily have to be the best at a particular round. Provided you can make it up in the others, you should still be okay. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think you could have done a better job than them, given the time limits they were restricted? Have you ever made a fortune cookie before? Do you find them incredibly difficult? Or would you rather they just get left to the, factories where they mass produce them? Have you ever heard of these types of fortune cookies before? Or are you just used to, your plain Jane fortune cookies? As always, leave your comments down below. Please like the video. Please subscribe. Please click the bell for notifications. And as always, thank you for taking the time to watch the video.
And